Cornland School Foundation, preserving the past to educate the future. A teacher's view of Cornland School. The building is quiet now, but before 1953, it was busy with the education of rural black children.
Yeah.
Let's try to imagine what it was like for a teacher. Maybe someone like you in 1938. It is the time of separate but equal education for African Americans. You have signed a contract to teach at Benefit School Number 4, also known as Cornland School. You have 2 years of college, which is typical of the time period, and you've been teaching 7 years. You can keep this job as long as you are doing well and as long as you stay unmarried. You will be making $63 per month, compared to $100 per month made by a white teacher at Deep Creek Elementary. She has the same certification as you and has been teaching just as long, but she may not be facing the same challenges as you will. Your school is one of 20 one-room elementary schools and a few larger ones in Norfolk County, which are for black children. The county has closed all but 3 of the small schools for whites, sending those children to larger, more centrally located buildings. The teachers in those white schools will have fewer students in their rooms, and of course, they will all be in the same grade. The county will spend considerably more money educating those children than they will spend on the students in your class. Cornland is a simple one-room structure, just 20 by 30 feet, about the size of a garage. Like many of the schools for blacks, Cornland is located next to a church. This one was founded in 1868, and the old-timers say that there was also a school built close by a few years later, and that it was financed and constructed by former slaves. You have seen a picture that may be of that early school, and you find it fascinating. The man in the picture is A. J. Sykes, who taught there and became a well-known educator in the area until his death in 1925. That original building was torn down, and your school was built in 1902 for the 1903 school year. Interestingly, the school was not owned by the church or by the school district, which administers it and pays your salary. It is on private land. This year, you will have 45 children in your class, and they will be in the 1st through 7th grades. Not all will attend school every day or even all day long, because they will be needed to help with farming, but you will average 91% attendance. Attendance percentages have been improving from the low of 61% back in 1929-30, when it was common for children to come in only 1 day a week, or only in bad weather when there were no crops to work. Enrollment has also fallen from a high of 71 back in 1934-35. That was the year you were given a $5 a month increase in pay and recognition from the school board for your outstanding work. Of course, the average attendance was only 64 children, still too many for the 20 by 30 foot building. You certainly merited that bonus. Your children will walk to school, often several miles each way. Some will even choose to walk a longer distance because the shorter route is often flooded. They may arrive cold and wet, sometimes hungry, and inevitably late. Sometimes they are hassled by the white children riding by on their school buses. You will remember the little girl who comes in crying one day because the driver on the white children's school bus stops so a boy can pick up rocks to throw at her. You feel for those children and worry for their safety, but their education is your primary concern. Your biggest challenge will be to keep everyone working on different grade levels at the same time. Older children will help the younger ones. After all, the best way to learn something is to teach it. You will have differentiated learning, peer facilitation, and effective discipline, or you will be the one failing. On top of that, you have few books, and those are outdated hand-me-downs. Your students will get solid basics from you. You'll keep it interesting, but there will not be a lot of frills. You want your students to have self-discipline too, but if you need to help that along, you have a paddle and a ruler. You don't use them often because you know if you do, the parents will mete out more punishment at home. Those teachers in larger schools, especially the white ones, will have the comfort of other teachers across the hall and a principal in an office. They will have heat, electricity, and some sort of indoor plumbing, and a telephone. You are on your own. You have a pump outside, but you have to be the fire starter, the lamplighter, and the janitor. Cornland is heated by a coal-fired stove in the middle of the room, so some parts of it are freezing and others are horribly hot. The light comes from 6 windows. You have no electricity, but you light lamps sparingly. Frankly, you're concerned about fire. The building isn't worth much, maybe $750, but it is only insured for 2/3 of its value, and its loss would be a disaster for the community and for you too. Those teachers in larger schools also have something that you don't: a minute on your own. You even have to share the outhouse with your students, actually with just the female students. Those 2 little buildings are pretty new, only 6 years old. Since Cornland is located in what the school board eventually will call a low and undesirable site, you are always on the lookout for snakes. Certainly, you hope that many of your students will go on to high school at Providence High or even Gilmerton, but you are realistic enough to know that for some, high school is too far away and too expensive. Regardless, you try your hardest to give them the foundation for a successful life. And what about you? Could you see that by the mid-40s, black teachers would make the same wage as white teachers? And that in 1941, neighboring South Norfolk would realize they could not find enough single women teachers and resort to hiring married women? That in 1944, Norfolk County would finally hire a bus driver for Cornland students? And that in 1952, the last students would leave Cornland School to go to a new elementary school with electricity, telephone, and plumbing.